copy, that we're not going to touch. But those last two, the map and the bike, we're going to make those go double column when it gets to tablet. So save this so you have something to refer back to. Let's close them out. And let's go back to our bike site now. So I'm going to open up my bike site, the index and the style for that. And I'm going to open up my index for that. Okay. So we're going to take Bike of the Week and dealerships. Since they're two separate blocks, we can start doing whatever we want with them. But there's a little bit of a trick, a little bit of a problem. What is that problem with these three divs? They're all articles. So how do I need to talk to just these last two articles and leave that first one alone? I can't just style the article now because it'll affect all of them. That's right. What does Beyonce say? If you want to style it, put a class on it. All right. If you want to style it, put a class on it. All right. So I'm going to put a class of column. I'm just going to call it columns because these end up being columns. I'm going to put a class of column on those two articles, on dealership and Bike of the Week and dealerships. If I can type, that would be helpful. Okay, so they're going to be articles first, and then I'm going to change whatever I need to change about it with the class. Then. So far, so good. So, Bike of the Week and dealerships. I'm going to add class to columns of it, and then I can start messing with them a little bit separately than that first article. I can kind of change it up a little bit. So in my style sheet, I'm going to go scroll all the way down here, and I'm going to put this here. So I'm going to say, here's my start of my tablet starts here. And then I'm going to do my media query. And since this is new, so at media, screen, and parentheses, min width, let's say 900 pixels. That's about average size of a tablet. Some tablets are around 1,000, some are about 850, so I just kind of do 900. My curly braces. Now, I didn't style that class of columns up in my phone. I didn't really need to. So I don't need to make it up in my phone. I can just start it here. I don't, since columns didn't do anything for the phone anyway, right? So I'm gonna start talking to my columns now. So how do I do that? Dot columns. And so what do I need to do? Just talk it out with me. What do I need to do with those two columns now? Okay, how wide do I want to be? So I need to figure out a new width because they're not going to be this 90 some odd % anymore to get them to go side by side. And then what else do I need to do? Float them. I got to float them to get them to go side by side. And then, depending on how I treated them, how I got them to center and stuff, what else do I need to do? Mess with my margins a little bit. There you go. All right. So my columns, I'm going to float them left because I need to do that. And then what was my margins that I was using on things? I think it was 4 and some odd change, right? Margin is 4.6785, I think. Yeah. So I'm gonna, 6785. So I'm gonna grab my margin left from my logo because I'm kind of keeping my margins the same on everything. So I need to put a margin left on those guys. So that's going to be a margin left on both my squares. Because they were margin auto, just automatically center them. So again, I got to figure out what is my width. And again, if I had my Illustrator file, I could measure it manually, but I can just do it do it this way. So I got two squares. I got a margin left of 4.6785% there. 4.6785 here. And I know that I want that left over here too, right? So 85. So then what's my width? Because this all has to add up to 100 again. 98 and change?
Yeah. Okay, so
maybe we'll do it on the computer since there's a lot of decimal places.
42.9822.
There you go. All right. So I want my margin lefts, and then my width is 42.98225.
Yeah.
So I got them floating. I got my margin left, and I got my width going. So let's see if this starts working. So about right here, it is not working. Yes, that would help. Thank you. Oh, it works. I saw a cool post. It was like a semicolon. It said "Hide and Seek Champion of the Year." All right, so now I've got my two columns. Just with that little bit of media query, I can say, "Hey, you're a different size and a different margin now." But since I kept I'm keeping my margins over from my phone, that's why I had you guys make your grid to where we shared the same units, share the same gutter. That way, they look like they go together. They're not like wickedly changing around in space, right? Good? Everybody good? Who's having trouble? Anybody having trouble? Yeah. Okay, so let me go back. Did you save it? Yeah, I got there. Or do you want mine? All right, well, let's do a little trick here. Before columns there, or after columns, doesn't matter. Let's put a body, background color in the body. Let's make sure that name goes well. You're inside the columns. Oh.
The attitude that Caesar had.
Body.
I went down to the. I usually do. We do this on the patients, not like out of a teacher.
Yeah, I just like look at
And Loretta, like after we went to lunch, I went down to the storage room and I needed to organize everything. Those boxes. There's tissue. Yeah, there's so many. In that room, like they turned off the air conditioning here, so it was really hot. The whole time I was like sweating.
We need Anne's screen.
Maybe that's why mine said working.
That might be Anne's screen.
I like the rush of trips and you like
yeah, no,
there's like dead crickets everywhere. There's like dead crickets.
oh yeah.
And then I do processing where the numbers come in and like I put all the information in there. And then we'll do now room also sometimes because they have so many people up front, sometimes some of them flyers or whatever.
should be crossed out.
Or we'll also do like ones where it's like those big block things.
It should be getting used where
Yeah, they also answer the phone.
Yeah. And so yesterday, like I did that from like around 2 to 3:30. That's like as much as I could do. And then I went back, and right away, like I had 2 giveaways that I had to do. The phone started going off.
I will like
I had the magazines
like
came in.
people like sometimes they request like oh like when was this conference? Did you your sure fans are stress bars, what models? So you have to like find the prompts and type it out.
Kind of write everything, make sure it's all right.
And some of them they're like some of them might offer like oh just want to give it up. So I mean I can do that.
It's like we're keeping it stuck.
Yeah. Like it's just I feel them and they say hey well it's fine. But like sometimes people be like oh you're like
Depending on what they want, I guess. But I thought, yeah. Sometimes we don't. I mean, we still.
now because when I was like doing that they didn't really do the conference so I have to figure everything.
See, I need to talk to Chandler. We should set up like a Slack because I never know if it's outside,
Oh,
if
crap.
it's in the garage, or someone's
You
So,
yeah.
Hit a typo.
yeah.
Let's see. I don't know.
And then they park them at the garage too, so I want to walk over there and see. And sometimes they might not be there.
I must have.
Everybody else is working?
I did.
No, you still got, okay. There's got to be something simple going on here. Hold on. I don't know. It's a semicolon or something's off. Yours is working. Check and make sure that this is inside of this.
We're talking about it today.
Okay. Oh, screen and oh.
So it's screen and.
Sorry.
Well, it's funny because I switched them because I was like, oh, that's what it was, but it was something different. And I found out about it. No, I didn't like
You're missing an E on there. Everybody else get it?
Yeah. What's the number?
How are we feeling? Pretty good? Pretty excited? Because this is pretty cool stuff. Yeah, you're like, my brain just grew like 45%. All right. So, now what's wrong with our site? Needs a different nav. Does this work for a desktop? Nah. Nah. What would work for a desktop?
So straight across the top.
Maybe if it went straight across the top. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So what if we took our nav and we modified it? We want it to do that and be out at all times, right? So instead of being vertical and covering up the whole screen, we want it to be kind of a bar at the top and have horizontal buttons. So if you just had to think about it, let's go back to our drop-down menu here a little bit, and our ULs and our LIs. So, right, we're going to yank this guy, right? Hey, yank that guy. All right. So let's just take it one step at a time. So our drop down, we need to change it up. So in our media query, let's talk to drop down. What did we say we had to do? We need to display it. So the drop down is currently display none. What's the opposite of display none? Huh? Block. That's what that JavaScript did. It flopped it between block and none, right? So let's take a look-see. All right. So far, so good. So it's out. All right. So we also needed to change the second list as on our height, right? So we got it set at 100 VH. How do we tell it just to suck up to the however much content I got? Auto. So I can just say height auto, and that should suck it up to whatever content. Pretty good, huh? Okay. All right. All right. I need to, what do we say? We need to remove the burger. That's the next step, right? How do I get the burger? How do I talk to the burger?
Class burger.
Yeah, dot burger. And then we already just did this with the drop down. How do I get that burger to go away? Display none. My burger just went away. Pretty cool, huh? Not too bad. That logo is getting way too big. Let's maybe put a little max width on that logo while we're at it. Let's see, I think it was 200 pixels, I think. There we go, that's a little bit better. Okay, so 200 pixels on our logo, so we can kind of fix that size there. So now we got this thing going on. I actually might have put that max width on my logo originally. All right, so okay, so now what do we got to do? Float my LIs, right? So how do I talk to my LIs? I think I just have them here, right here, right? Yeah. Okay. So I gotta float those guys. Float them left. What? Maybe I should put a little bit of margin right on them so they don't gotta stick together. Sounds like a good plan. See what 2% does. That's better. Pretty good. Not too bad. All right. All right, so now my LIs are inside of what? The UL. Yeah. So I gotta mess with that. Let's give my UL a little bit of background color so we can kind of see what it's looking like. Oh, it's there's stuff floated inside of it. So what happened? Why can't I see the color in my UL? It collapsed. How do I fix my collapse? Favorite DJ. There we go. All right. Okay, so let's see here. We gotta get this. It's too big. It's too wide to fit up in here. I'm pretty sure. So, but let's just try it. How do we get our logo and this guy side by side? Yeah, we can. Let's get rid of the line if that's what you want to do. So let's do a border top none. There we go. I got rid of that line. And then so my logo's already doing half of it, half the work, but my UL needs to do something now. Yeah, I got to float it. So let's say if I want my logo, let's say my logo's on the left-hand side, I want my nav to go on the right-hand side. Let's float it right. I think that's a good idea. Okay, but it's obviously too big, right, to fit in there. Because I think I've got to, let's see what my width is right now. My width of my UL before I get to my media query is 80%, and my logo is like another 20% or so, or more than 20%, so it ain't going to fit. So instead of just trying to measure it, I'm going to let my margins do the work on that guy. I'm just going to say width auto and see if that kind of sucks it down. There you go. That is still not working the way I want it to. So let's see what my logo's doing here. Let's give my logo a background color. Huh. Okay. What do I got going on? So I got something blocking me right here. These are both in the header, I think. So I'm going to do an inspect element. Do y'all ever see this? You right click in Chrome and do inspect. And I'm going to hit these little dots and go to dock side there. So it's, and then I don't want this at all. There we go. Click that little button right there. All right, so I can. I want to look at my style sheet. HTML. There it is. If I'm. Somebody's really messed up with this thing. So if you roll over your HTML, you can kind of see the boxes light up. And that's a really nice troubleshooting thing. All right, so I got my drop down here. I got my header. I got burger. Ah, my header's way too big. See that? My header goes all the way across. So I actually got to float my header because my UL is outside of my header. I forgot. I didn't build it inside my header. So actually, my header's way too big, and I got to float my header. So back in my media query, I'm still in my media query. Hey header, I'm going to float you left, and I'm going to give me a width of auto on this. Let's see if that fixes that problem. That did not work at all. All right, so actually what I need, okay, so here's my problem. My logo, let's see, my header was 100% and my logo was 34% inside my header. So I actually got to make my logo 100% of my header now to fill up my header because I made my header smaller. That makes my logo even smaller because it's not 34% of 100%, it's 34% of like 20% now. So my logo got way too small now, so I got to fix that. So I'm going to make my logo width of 100%. Sorry guys, that's a little confusing. There, it's better. Okay, now they're more organized. Now my UL, instead of width, I'm going to do like 80%. It's a little bit better. Or I'll do 60%. There we go. So what I did was I made my logo back to 100%, but I decreased the size of my header instead. I made it 20%. All right, so I did that a little. Sorry, I had to make a little bit of changes in my mind. Logo, we put a max width of 200% on it, 200 pixels, and a width of 100%. My UL, I'm making 60% wide, floating it right, and I have to float my header left and change my header to 20%. Again, if I had an Illustrator file, I could do my measurements. We're kind of doing it on the fly here.
Try setting your.
Maybe just because I have like more, because I have
Oh, you got these two together. You just don't have. Make these smaller.
yeah,
No, you need that bigger.
this one.
No, you need your red one bigger. It's wrapping. Your text is wrapping. 70% or so. Yeah. And then in your case, you may need to just stretch out a little bit. I think you want to
Okay.
We'd have to have another meeting query or something. Just get the idea. So I got my header floated left, I got my width down to 20%, I got my UL down to 60% floated right, and everything floating next to each other. If you're getting a little small and it starts kind of wrapping on you, we might need another media query to fix that for sure. But everybody got that at least?
Is the header supposed to come off of here?
Yeah. Give it a max width of 1200. So your UL is the red one. Okay, what's that one? That's wrapping. That's fine. You don't have to make these smaller. Or restrict it. You get the idea of it at least. Everybody else got it working?
That max with
Okay, just stretch your window. There you go. Well, you'd probably need to size those down a little bit. They're too big for
I don't know.
Okay, so some of you guys, the last thing, some of you guys noticed that since it's a fixed div, it's still working the way we wanted it to. It's a fixed div, so it's kind of going off the edge. Fixed divs have this weird thing where they kind of go off the edge. So in my drop-down menu, I'm going to also give this a max width of 1200 pixels to kind of fit with my wrapper. Fixed divs, for whatever reason, they'll start with your wrapper, but they'll bust out of it for some reason. They just kind of do that. So if you save that, then that will kind of suck it in and stop at the edge of my site. And then now, if you go back and forth, you should be able to see it switch from the drop down over to the desktop. But one last caveat. If I'm on the phone size and I use the JavaScript to change this thing from hidden to show or back, and then I pull out it's no longer there. I have to hit refresh to make it come back. That's because my JavaScript overrides my CSS. Right? We had our JavaScript goes from block to none and back and forth. But when then we said, hey, drop down, you're now block, we have to make sure we override the JavaScript now and say, I don't care what else told you to be this way. I want you to be display block no matter what. And so there's a little trick, and you got to use it very sparingly. It's a very dangerous thing to use. Right after you say on the drop down, right after you just say display block, this is in my media query, I'm going to say exclamation important. And what that does is that's like a sledgehammer. It's like, I don't care whatever told you to be something else, I'm telling you to be this. I don't care who told you to be something else. So now if I save it, refresh, I can toggle this a couple of times and it will still show up. Whereas before, I would toggle it and it wouldn't show up because I had I turned it off with my JavaScript. JavaScript can be a little bit overzealous sometimes. So that exclamation important, that's what you do if you really, really gotta force it.